Okay.
I am here with Carli Samuelson, who is in the corps de ballet at Pacific Northwest Ballet. She has been a guest artist with Mid Columbia Ballet several times. Do you know how many times? Do you remember?
Four, I think.
Four? All right, four
Yeah.
times. And she's been great, and we love her.
I love
And
you guys too.
yay! And she is going to talk about Swan Lake. But first, we're going to ask her to give us a little brief history and kind of her career as a dancer.
Do you want to know about like my schooling too?
Yeah.
Okay. So I started ballet when I was four at Central Pennsylvania Youth Ballet in Carlisle, Pennsylvania. And I danced there till I graduated high school in 2006. And then I went out to Seattle to dance in the professional division level there for a year. And then after that, I ended up going back to Pennsylvania and dancing with Pennsylvania Ballet 2 for a year in Philadelphia. And then I actually got a call from a friend that I danced with when I was a PD, and he had said that Peter was probably going to be looking for more dancers because there were some that were leaving that next year, and he was like, "You need to come back and audition." So I did, and luckily I ended up getting the job in 2008 with PNB, and I've been there ever since.
Fantastic.
So
So
yeah.
with PMB, you have performed Swan Lake. As we get
Many times.
ready, as we get ready for our spring performance, which includes Swan Lake Act Two on March 17th and 18th. So could you tell us a little bit about what that's like to go through the rehearsal process and get ready for a performance like Swan Lake?
Swan Lake is probably one of the most challenging ballets for the core women. Like, I think they're, or at least that I've ever done. Um, because I know you said you guys are just doing Act Two, but in the version that we do, there's four acts.
Mm-hmm.
And where the core women are in every single act, every single show, and they usually do swans every single show because there's so many of them, and you really need like every core woman that you have, to do it. So it's a pretty grueling process, if I have to say. Um, just really long hours, getting the footwork perfect and everyone's arms like the same height and width apart, and the lines are perfect. And but I have to say that it's actually probably one of the most rewarding ballets that I've ever done, because it takes such hard work to get it perfect. And but then when you're actually on stage, like, you really feel like you're part of a team, kind of, because every single person in the core matters. Like, if one person is out of line or one person is late, like, the audience notices. And I've heard a lot of the times, that I've performed Swan Lake, that the Swan Corps is their favorite part of the ballet. And it wouldn't be Swan Lake without the Corps. So they're very, very important.
Yes.
So
So what is it like to stand in a performance, and one of the things that our dancers certainly have talked about is how much, because this is a new experience for them in doing this sort of pure traditional classical ballet,
right.
certainly for this generation of dancers that we've had. They talk about how long they have to stand on stage and just stand, and they haven't really done that before. So what kind of experience have you had with that, and what kind of advice could you give, certainly to stand and be plus in a line forever?
Yeah. It's really difficult. I'm not gonna lie. It takes a lot of concentration. Try not to space out because if you do, like, I've never experienced this, but I'm sure it's happened. I'm sure that someone, has spaced out and maybe like swayed a little bit, like lost their balance because they weren't like focusing. But you really, I think you just have to think about being in the moment and thinking like, I'm on this, even though I'm on the side, like I still matter because you're kind of like framing, the principal couple and the fact that, all the swans can stand there for so long and be so still, like that's impressive alone or on its own. So just, know that, you know, as a standing swan, you're still important, and to just try and like stay in the moment and experience that. So
yeah. So you've also had, as part of being in the Corps in Swan Lake, have had some step out roles. Could you talk a little bit more about that?
So is that like Four Little Swans
yeah,
you're hinting towards?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, Four Little Swans is also probably like one of my favorite parts, even though it's, again, really, really challenging. But also, again, it's probably one of people's favorite parts because, everyone has to be so together and perfect, and, the technique has to be perfect. It's really impressive for people that don't really know much about ballet. So, but yeah, I really love doing it because I think, again, it's very rewarding when you finish it, and the crowd just goes wild. It's kind of crazy to think about, but yeah, it's really technically difficult. So it's just, I don't know.
So obviously, well, when this interview goes live, when it airs, it'll be a little bit later in the week. But right now, as we speak, tonight was our first night in the theater, and I got to speak to some of our dancers who are doing Four Little Swans, and I actually told them, I was like, I'm talking to Carli tonight, and do you have any questions for her? And so two of them had some questions. So one was asking about when you get to the end of it and you're having the the emboîté moment. How do you push through that last part? Because she was talking about kind of hitting that wall where you're like, I can't do it anymore. So how do you keep going?
Yeah. Well, for me, I just, you really have to concentrate on what your feet are doing. Like, that's really all you have to think about is, just like keep pointing your feet. Don't trip yourself. Don't trip anyone else.
Yeah.
But I think just remember that you're almost done. And, you've done, I'm sure they've probably rehearsed it hundreds of times. So, you can get through it. And just use the adrenaline from the performance to like help you through, and it'll happen.
Excellent. So the second question, pretty much along the same lines, and I am sure your answer would be the same, but I have to ask it because it just cracked me up when she asked, which was, okay. She said, ask her, how do you point your left foot on the pas de chat? And it just like, I was like, brilliant. Good question. That one I don't know if she's done.
Anyway. Oh, well, that's difficult too, because that diagonal of the pas de chat that's really hard, and I think that's a part that like you get out of breath like pretty quickly. I mean, and it's already, you're already halfway through at that point, so you're already pretty out of breath. But I mean, all you can really think of is just, try and keep it pointed and just try and keep going. And even if they're cramping, like, just remember you're almost done. The end is in sight.
Excellent. So
and very rewarding that you'll,
very,
once you finish,
yes,
you'll
yes.
feel very proud of yourself.
Excellent. So you've given great advice to our dancers, but what you said you've performed it several times, and you will be performing it again next season. So throughout your experiences of going through the process, what do you think that you have learned and kind of been able to take away from it?
I mean, I remember the first time performing it. I was actually a PD with the school, so I was very fortunate enough to get to perform it with the company. And I just remember like being in awe of, the dancers and just the production itself, the music, the costumes, everything, and feeling very special being up on stage. And the last time I performed it, I still felt the same way. So it like never really, that feeling never really changed. And I think, I don't know, I feel like, I mean, that was my first performance, I think, with the company as a PD. And I feel like that kind of solidified my love for ballet and love for performing, because it is such a classic ballet that, everyone does, everyone sees, and the fact that I was a part of it was really awesome. And I still felt that same way years later as a professional dancer. So I think, just taking away, or what I took away from it, is that like you just have, like, knowing that you're a part of that is really special, and cherish that moment, because I mean, this is a sad note, but professional careers don't last very long. And but being a part of Swan Lake is really special, and it's one of my favorite ballets, so excellent. I love it.
Thank you for sharing. Finally, our dancers are going into performance this weekend. As they kind of get into the home stretch of it all, do you have anything else that you'd like to say? Any sort of advice, last minute tips?
Just make sure when the dancers can rest, because it is such a challenging ballet that you need your full energy to be able to get through it. So just take care of yourselves and eat foods that will give you energy, drink lots of water, and get a good night's sleep, because you're going to need it.
Well, thank you so much for speaking with us this evening, and Married for your shows this weekend.
Thank you. You too.
Thank you.